Well, thank you, Deri, for joining us today. We appreciate it. This is our show called Impact, which is all about sharing your insights, your experiences, your lessons, and what helped you create a greater impact in the world, whether it's discussing respect in the workplace, as we were going to be discussing on our other show, Gift of Respect, or other forms of ways you've been able to have an impact. So, Deri, I always like to let you, the guest, tell about you. So I'm going to let you tell everybody a little background on yourself and how you got to where you are, what that journey was, and we'll go from there.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much. I'm just completely honored to be part of this with you, Mike. I've seen you speak before and completely respect what you do. My journey, started. If we go way back, when I was a teenager, I was actually just thinking about what to do with my life, and my father suddenly passed away. He was just 45 years old, and at that time, it was just of course, something I'll never forget. But for many reasons, it's something I'll never forget. He was for sure the foundation, the rock of our family. My mom was a stay-at-home parent. I was one of 4 siblings, and suddenly everything changed in one moment. And I decided instead of going to college, I would stay and help my mom, and I ended up getting a job at the local mining company in this small town I lived in, and I got a job in personnel. Do you remember when human resources used to be called personnel? That was a long time ago, and I also got a chance to go through my father's things. He was an executive there, so I cleaned out his office, and in his office, I discovered that he was really, in some of his personal notes, he was really under a lot of stress. And we, of course, had no idea. Certainly I, as a teenager, no idea about that. So I started thinking, wow, here's this guy that I lived with and loved and hung out with, and I didn't know this about him. And then I got to know people through my role in personnel. I just saw how many people were not having a lot of fun at work. And as a young person, I thought, wow, that could be different. You spend a lot of time at work, and it shouldn't certainly be something that kills you, as it did my father. And that's really the way it appeared to me. So I decided then to pursue a business degree in human resource management. And before that, I was actually going to go into sciences, if you can imagine. I'm not sure now why, other than I think I had a crush on my science teacher. That's the reason. But I went into business, majored in human resources, and I was ready to change the world, of course, and help people to be happy and positive at work. And right after university, I met a wonderful man, and we decided to get married. And 8 months into our marriage, he died by suicide. And again, something I'll, of course, never forget. But it was another moment, another key milestone, if you like, on the journey where I again started to reflect on perhaps secrets that people have, things that might be going on inside that people aren't sharing with others that care about them. So this just added fuel, energy, if you like, to the mission I was already on, which was to propel opportunities for people to connect with themselves, connect with each other, and to have a meaningful, productive, positive experience at work, I work in workplaces, but of course this translates at home as well. And so I've continued to do that. This was, again, many years ago, over 20 years ago when this happened. And since I married again, I've got a couple of kids who I care about, and I really want them to be able to enter homes and workplaces that are healthy. And another experience happened, if you can believe it. So it's sort of like the three, and I'm hoping it stops as far as not very positive experiences, but my older sibling experienced a huge setback in his life when he was diagnosed with depression. And in fact, he ended up in prison. Mike, he's a guy who, again, like you and me, just a guy,
Right.
had everything, full life. And so again, I just became, it just added more in terms of my interest and energy around doing what I can to help all of us to connect with ourselves and with each other. And I think that's the pathway to, a positive, happy world.
Well, what you shared, what you shared, I mean, those are really difficult life moments that propelled you into the deep digging that you've done to help others. It's something that when you've come from a place of something that negative that triggers, people will often ask you, how did you do that? How did you take these negatives and somehow find the positive, find, the cliche, the silver lining? How did you do that?
Yeah. And I certainly have been asked that. And I think that with anything, when there's some trauma that happens, there's, of course, some time of just healing and for any of us. But I found that, for me, that time period was relatively short in the sense that I started to think about what could be good out of this experience. What could I take away from this that could help me, that could help others? And I just started down that path. It was really interesting that after my first husband, Kelly, who, again, we were just married for 8 months, I was literally still on the honeymoon when this occurred and had no idea that he was in despair. I started a new job shortly after that, and again, I was still in the healing time for sure. I could not say the word suicide. I had not come to terms with that at all. But my new manager took me out for lunch, and he knew I was a widow. He knew I was 27. That's really all he knew. And so he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He offered his condolences, and then he said something that, again, I'll never forget. He said, "I envy you." And I sort of looked back at him blankly. Pardon me? And he said, just let me explain. He said, "I envy you, Deri, because you have an opportunity to do something that lots of us don't do ever in our life. And if we do, it's certainly later in our life. To decide what really matters to you and what you want to do with this life you've been given." And honestly, it was really within days of that conversation, I thought, he's right. I can choose. I can decide. And so I really believe when you say, how did I do that, that I did allow myself to be where I needed to be in terms of, say, the, dealing with the trauma. But I just started putting one foot in front of the other and to say what could be useful and productive for me here. And I do believe that I lucked out in meeting really wonderful people like this manager who said things that just stuck with me and propelled this big change for me. And so when people say, how do you do it? How do you look for the good? I say just, you can start with just a moment of saying what could be good right now in this moment. And it can just start with something really small.
Yeah, and you gave a great example of being present in the moment, right? Because if you were not present when he said that, if you were just going to become defensive and say, how dare you, versus you paused to, as he said, just give me a moment, just give me a moment to explain, and you gave him the moment, so that allowed you to be present, him to be present, and you allowed him to shift your paradigm of where you're coming from, which is incredible. So I think it's a great lesson in being in the moment and being open to really hear what the world's bringing to you at that moment.
Absolutely. And when I was thinking about talking to you earlier about the idea of respect, it's I think the greatest gift all of us can give to ourselves is that idea of mindfulness, of being just really present and pausing. I just had a keynoted at an event yesterday, and one of the executives who had been in and out of the room a few times during the keynote that was just an hour came in and he said, "Well, that was great. What I saw, but that was really great." And I said, "Oh, that's wonderful, thank you." And he said, "Yeah, I just can't kind of be in the room for an hour." And then he and I, he started laughing after he said that, and we just talked about how, we've got to change that. He even reflected. He said, "I don't even know about the last time that I've been present with my kids. Have I really been in the room with them in the last few years? I think, and it again just starts with even a minute. I did a little 15-second meditation with a group last week, and it can just start with that, just to notice what it's like to be present. Because I think a lot of us in this world have lost that a little.
Oh, there's no doubt. I'm a group member of Strategic Coach, which is Canadian-based company, Dan Sullivan. And it's amazing when you get 40 executives in a room, and many of these people own their own companies or are in the C-suite of a company, and they admit they're at their games, checking their email, their kids' games. They're doing all this. There's not really, and I'll admit I've done it. And so one of the things that I learned in the last year was that shutting it down, walking away, being present, and it's huge. It's huge. And how did you take the steps of realizing I'm going to take the positive here and make an impact? So what was the next step to, all right, there's an opportunity here. What do I do with it?
Yeah. Well, for me, it was learning as much as I could. So just to devour as much information and as much of the global intelligence around, again, happiness, positivity, post-traumatic growth. As much as I could find, I was just devouring information. And I feel that I'm so lucky to have the job that I have, where I'm in front of audiences every week. And so I can share what I'm learning, and I'm learning it again. So what I encourage everyone in my audiences to do is, whatever you learn, if you take anything away from any experience, something you've read, somebody you've seen, to share it with someone else. Because when you talk about it, when you teach someone else, share it with someone else, it becomes a gift to you as well. You just learn it better. It goes a little bit deeper. So I just started talking and sharing that and writing.
So let's pause there on the talking. How did you start talking? Because you weren't a speaker. You were working in human resources at the time. Yeah. So what was the step you took to start sharing, to start speaking?
I actually hired some consultants in the organization that I was working with, and I was hugely attracted to them. I loved the people that they were.
You mean in the style of work they do? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's a whole nother reason to go hire the consultant. Hey, you're good looking. Can you help me over here? Or I'm attracted to you, right?
That's right, exactly. So yeah, I just loved their message and the kind of people that they were. So and this was, by the way, shortly within a year and a half after Kelly passed away. And so I just over coffee said, I would love to do what you do. I don't know if I can or how I would do that, but I would love to do it. And they said, well, we can't pay you, but if you want to join us and you get some work, we'll mentor you, but you're on your own as far as eating. So I thought I was just sort of young enough at the time, and I'd always been a good saver, so I thought I could live for a year and see how this goes. So I actually left my job in human resources, and I joined these two gentlemen, and lo and behold, within about a week of joining them, I got a year-long contract with a national organization, and it really just snowballed from there. I feel that I just was so lucky,
but I'm going to pause you, because you really weren't lucky. You took a risk most people weren't willing to take, and that enabled you to have the opportunity, to make that difference. The question I have for you is, you did something similar to what I did when I got started, and I think there's two mindsets out there. There's the mindset of take it slow and grow your business and stay in your job. And then there's a mindset of dive in. Give everything up, everything you have up, and dive in, because if you're going to do it all the way. And that leads to a bit of desperation, because you had money saved up. Most people don't. And so it leads to a moment of desperation. I'm a huge believer, but maybe it's a personality thing, and maybe you and I are similar. I'm a huge believer that desperation is the most awesome inspiration. That when everything's on the line and you make it that way, you got to find a way to succeed. Versus if you take it nice and slow over here, there's this comfortable place giving you an income or giving you a safety net. What's really the hurry if things don't go right over here? What are your views on that?
Well, I completely agree with you on that, Mike. I very much have adopted that in my life, and that is the way I go through life, which is to jump in, to take a risk and see what happens, and and of course mindful risks, as I teach my teenage children now,
yes.
mindful risks, but a risk nonetheless. I agree that I feel, and people that I speak with who are the same feel that is life. That's where I am most alive, is when I take that risk and believe in myself and in what's possible. So I highly encourage people to do that. And some people say, well, I can't quit my job, Deri. I'd love to. I'd like to do what you do, or what, do this other thing, paint, for example, for a living, but I can't quit my job. And so I talk about, well, what small risk could you take? What small thing could you do right now while you're, starting to prepare yourself and start to notice what happens?
And that's awesome, because I have to be honest, I'm the one who would go back to him and go, you can't or you choose not to, so that sort of thing. So you've got a much more positive view there of saying, well, what can you take the risk? And I think that's great insight to help that person at least see there's a step here that can be taken.
Right, absolutely. And, for sure. And I think that for lots of people, and maybe it's part of our human nature, we see the barriers much bigger than we see the opportunities, which is why I encourage people to stick your toe in. Just start, take that one step, because once you do, you will see that the opportunities are actually far bigger than the obstacles.
And it's contagious. Once you take that risk and there's a little success, I want more. And suddenly you're realizing, oh my gosh, maybe I can take the big step, because it's not a big step anymore. It doesn't feel like this big step. You're giving us some great information there. I'm curious. I'm guessing you're a reader. I could be wrong. But it sounds like you said I look for that mindfulness and how to learn that about myself and how to absorb more information. What are 2 or 3 books that have had an incredible impact on your ability to see the world the way you see it today?
Yeah. Well, I would say one of them is Brene Brown's latest book, Daring Greatly.
I just got it. So, literally, I'm diving into it the last couple of days. So talk about timing. And it's an easy read, super easy read, but continue, sorry.
Yeah, I found it, and Gifts of Imperfection, one of her earlier books, was when I really got hooked on her and the message that she delivers. So that would be one. Elisha Goldstein writes about mindfulness, and his latest book is called The Now Effect. And that's really about the opportunity we have in that space between our thoughts. And it's a really interesting book. What's wonderful about it is it's full of exercises. And so as you're reading the book and learning, you can practice right there. It's embedded in the book. And he's a prolific blogger, so there's tons of information that he provides on an ongoing basis to people who purchase his book. So I found that to be a really wonderful book. And then I'd say beyond that, it would have to be Sean Acor's book on the Happiness Advantage. I think that he, anyone who's seen his TED Talk, you can't help but fall in love with the guy. He's pretty amazing. And he's really big right now. I just noticed in Workforce.com's latest publication that I just received, I actually held up in my session yesterday. He talks about positivity genius. So the genius of positive, and how, of course, his message is exactly where I find myself, where I'm positioned for sure, that you're, the pathway to all that's good in life is positivity, and for sure that's a choice. And we're naturally inclined to what's wrong, to what's missing, and the real genius is in what's there, what's possible, what's present.
Deri, you've offered to give us your book, which is awesome, a copy of your ebook to our listeners, our followers, our viewers. So here's what I want to do. I want them to show you what step they're going to take. So I'm going to throw a challenge out. For anybody who's watching today's segment, you need to leave a comment below the video of what step you're going to take based on what Deri shared with us today. And then we'll have somebody from our team randomly pick the person based on the people that put what step they're going to take to get that ebook, and we'll contact that person via the Google Plus profile and make that happen.
That'd be great. I'll totally look forward to reading those.
Cool. Deri, what's a way people can get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me through email, deri@derilatimer.com. My website is derilatimer.com. They can contact me through that, through the website. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all Deri Latimer. I would love to link with people and stay connected.
And just so everybody knows, Deri Latimer, that's DeriLatimer, correct?
It is. Thank you.
DeriLatimer.com, @Deri Latimer. Find all of those on social media. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Deri. You've been a fantastic guest.
Thank you so much, and I'm so looking forward to doing the radio spot.
We're gonna make that work. We're gonna get you on the Gift of Respect, definitely.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.